Hello, this is an affidavit. I swear to tell the whole truth, nothing but the truth. In other words. So help the Constitution. As for the Constitution unabridged, it was abridged before our founders were born, and roles with that were forced, and they were backed up because when your roles with that, it's going to cause negative value nature progressions, acts, and nature even further. And it got so it made those roles and acts and natures hurt ourselves for the breaching method. And that had been sustained. And then our founders were born, including the ones that had already been sustained against Native Americans, who are partially our founders. That's why it says president/chief. There were other demonstrations of that. Who would debate it also have evidences and demonstrations of the same thing, and styles of logic that refer to things just because they are published. See, there's a difference between precedents and statutes as assigned by the breaching method, which assign the debates regarding such too. That's what Jim Crow laws are still being effectively used for. A human fact human nature breaching method. Self-defenses of definitions of and uses of difference/differences that can't defend themselves in that and afford to be, let alone to protract short words properly. So Weathersfield Police, Kevin Dillon, sought me out to record, confess, demonstrate, confirm. He has roles with people like a Bob Chase and people from Whiting Forensics and people who went to campuses I went to who have been sticking fake audio and video on the campuses. Per their roles also at crime scenes and body dumping spots of completely different murders in time to use/S of roles with such and untimely deaths out of their location, uses of the lie progression. See, this is the difference between the overt criminal enterprises, private ones, countries as criminal insidiousness, natures A through Z, and the semi-ancient trap uses of names as systems and through systems, tactical ulterior from the one nature has. Nature, which shows the human species body of individual bodies. Its roles with group difference/S. See, we don't need theory. We have hyper relativity to lead us to guide. We would have, it was more probable that the religions with the nature of the things we learn through the nature of the religions preserved to know. Because damage control had to be done because the sciences became criminally foreign influence. And everyone had to entertain that or they were censored. So they couldn't even interpret their own books properly. And they still can't. They're still not allowing people to demonstrate that at the beginning of the Old Testament and the beginning of the Quran, they both have parts that dictate how we're supposed to defend those books. But no one lets that understood, so they defend it out of sequence. And when not, they still do. All exceptions are in demonstration the same thing too. So in other words, we would have come to the discernment of the predicate acts with facts method, hurting everyone sickly, non-distinctly, and we would have valued that to overcome it, make positive value nature progressions, acts, and natures everywhere at once. But we haven't because how we are that's being self-valued by styles blaming other things others ourselves. In reactions and or non-reactions, to learn how everyone's sickly distinctly. Hurt, like for example, by having black pupils and whites of eyes forced to entertain to mean what it doesn't. To have equality. In other words, nature shows us every subject individually grouped in together. And there are three equal parts of a hypersimultaneous that are grouped, that are only increasingly gaining in volume equally. And that's the extent of that we could discern of it, the hypersimultaneous. Its identity of relationship to itself as value. Its identity because it's equal to value as a volume because it's being coupled with that identity of hyper-simultaneous, that all the individual parts of your body, all the little identities of your body are being coupled with your complete identity. For example, and everyone's complete identity is a semi-nature relationship to its complete identity. English and ancient sciences were being led by, before the sciences became criminally foreign influence / hyper-criminally foreign influence, they're being led by the identity the sciences share and how and why they appear to have distinct identities the sciences. It is functional and part of its common and demonstrations of how it is hyper-additional nature. There is one hyper invisible, but still discernible part of all the indivisible, but still discernible parts of the parts of speech and of English grammar, for example. The subject and the verb are invisible, but still discernible. Why and how the verb needs more than one name for the verb. And why and how every subject, we can only grapple with subjects individually, finite, grouped, and simultaneous, except for how the existence of the hyper-simultaneous, its identity relationship to itself, and the value of that, how it exists. The first boxing. We fight by the rules, but they have stayed abridged. And so, on a mass scale, the intelligence community, Republican themed and Democratic themed, they have rules with the uses of their titles and uses of location /s as collusion as collusion / collusions. But that one original collusion that was using what it forced sustained, it forced Native Americans to fight with Native Americans before America's founders were even born. It had slavery entrenched in North America, South America. It forced our founders to hide their true identities and change things. And this breaching method would measure and maintain who's in collusion with itself, hurting everyone else, or being sensed. So they did damage control, enforced at 13 locations, and everyone to have no means to defend themselves against the crazy algorithm method, breaching method that was entrenched, the hyper-criminally foreign influence. I'm not a lawyer. It is also hyper-evidential where and how lawyers have in each of the sciences certain type of victim / hyper victim only allowed to be. Otherwise, that body would be sensed, even if that body is a majority of people, even if it is everyone, Black people. So, in other words, it is also hyper evidential that other things, others ourselves, were and are being blamed for things like slavery. And they're blaming our founders on slavery, exactly opposite the way than what our founders communicated. For us to communicate about the difference between what they communicated and what they said, and why and how that we had to understand our founders. It told us to communicate and understand James Madison. They were using his plan. And then they went and got George Washington. And then they went and forced the other 13 locations to become states. And then they had to sustain that while the breaching method's still trying to look because who was in collusion / S. So you had sickly distinctly slavery north and south, but it had sickly non-distinctly too. Because now if an identity of consciousness pays attention to that, the breaching method would measure and maintain that. Overcome. And it did this to group the countries too. had the employments doing that. Who wants to do that for life? That's not what the human species body is doing. This came from semi-ancient times. This built those exceptions. In other words, fake. So there's a quality of fact treating nature that's forced to where and how locations, areas, and states have self-value. How they stayed criminally foreign influence with a whole bunch of other countries that speak about and that they share the campuses together. For example, they share on and off campuses relationships they're in the process of demonstrating to me and confessing. A Rob Rodriguez has roles with a former mayor Gold, for example, and people associated with a Casper family, people that were in other classes from me, but we were in the same class, we were in the same grade, and O'Brien family members. Well, one brother was in my class, one was not. They have roles also with Lance Cuddy. I don't know if he went to my school. I don't even think he went to my school. And I don't think Subby Bajario did. But there are some child abusers in the news that also attach me to fake conversations with themselves. When I caught them forcing child abusers, leaders of kids, with people who were abused by child abusers, leaders, who had also been next to, with the religious spots and the spots next to it, including the news locations, Fox Connecticut News in their Facebook page, and their sources. They have roles with other journalists and the intelligence community next to their location, with a whole bunch of names tied to prosecutors and judges in foreign and domestic military, with the names next to CCSU, Central Connecticut State University in New Britain, and names next to Trinity College and Hartford, on off UConn, on off Quinnipiac University, involved with organized crime, methods, predicate acts with facts methods, people that are speaking about crimes, teaching about crimes, already completed whole careers, where and how originally and still, names on all sides of criminal and civil cases, their lawyers, the news at the same time, and the interbranch names and the intelligence tied to him, and the state offices, state of Connecticut judicial branch offices, the state of Connecticut corrections offices, and increasingly names associated next to it, involved with predicate acts with facts, with drugs and medicines crimes with little kids as the people that are supposed to counter that, attaching little kids and their families to fake uses of drugs and alcohol with themselves and their family members, fake conversations with themselves, also with the families that own houses and businesses next to the campuses, like Hartford Hospital's campus. There are people with the name Demoro and Iola and Mayano on all sides of Harvard Hospital's campus involved with foreign and domestic. Put predicate acts with facts with a whole bunch of people within the Britain Superior Court. Also involved with conscious uses of tactically juxtaposed distinct natures of organized crime. And I'm not referring to them, they're pretending it's things like their roles with training people to be unmarked police forms. Like they have roles with acting professors, with WTNH, that has been forced, tricked, hurt, persuaded to roles with wire crimes of Wethersfield Police and FBI, wire crime methods. There are also election spots roles with murders, even if they were made up. It might have been made up, the murder of Greg Kyler, because Joe and he's got a whole bunch of people that planted predicate acts with facts, fake ties, fake nature ties that I never even had classes with. I never had a class with Joe DeMar. One time he came into my fifth grade class for one quick second. He's increasingly involved with places and people that had roles with before that. And I never saw him when I was sixth grade either. But he increasingly has roles with people who had roles of murders and body dumping spots and confirmations of it, where you can't make that stuff up, like with Enzo Fienza, roles with the South Civiello, and he has and the Cub Scouts with medical corruption They have offenders of kids. They have their own families' roles timed with overt criminal enterprises and private ones. And it's not legitimately with them training unmarked police forms and roles with the other countries. Like, for example, these are people torturing Mexico and torturing Americans, and they're playing because there are still roles with the use of difference slash as the breaching method employed black and white to communicate other than it does black pupils. We have black pupils, whites about it. And that has been left out with this conversation simultaneously because simultaneously being measured and maintained, left out, is where and how the breaching method employed that. Hyper additionally from nature, as nature, but as criminal insidiousness nature. Nature itself demonstrates that. See, now you guys pretend things are debatable that are not. Every debate that has been since founding has been criminally foreign, has had recorded tied to it in criminally foreign influence, tactically delusions wrought, quality aspects in nature, styles of syntax, relative, for example, to how the relativity of equality and nature of debate with it, for example. The suburbs were designed, therefore, for torture, a torture method so perfected that rolls with slavery and blaming on other things other than themselves rather than the thing that everyone wanted to blame on. Part of the reason that is because you guys were forced, tricked, hurt, and persuaded to only remember having been fathomed, value nature systems this way. Having and already had reliant upon as natures of integrity, as natures of name reliant upon things not having been too, not just now, but now needing them now and needing them to come to stay blamed on other things other than yourself. The real causes of negative value nature progressions, acts in nature. Predicate acts too, no. Because people that are pretending action and the difference between words and action, those are the people involved with those predicate acts with facts methods while they're denying it and screening it. I said forgiveness is because we can discern the breaching method uses of names A through Z, where they pretend we're what we think, where they assign the value of voting to measure and maintain. Everyone leaves out the value of how mandated laws, still collusions, the prisons. There are judges of various natures and their family members involved also with the intelligence community. A Mike Penn, a whole bunch of there's like 5 brothers. I never met them. I met a Mike Delafera, and they have a probate court judge in their family. And they've been putting fake transcripts in databases because probate court judges, they're involved with locking up elderly. Don't let them leave the building. Torture methods, same ones they use in prisons. Measure and maintain that left out because those prisons also have roles with the crime scenes increasingly and overt criminal enterprises and private ones, not using their own confessions and demonstrations. So in other words, you have to, right before they made those huge penalty against Alex Jones, which I'm making no opinion about that, except for I did try to ask him for help, and he didn't respond. No, I don't know how many people have, but there are people from Sandy Hook who I recorded caught involved with a proven principal child abuser who had more. There are people with the name Mike Levine, people along Route 3, and further involved, also with the news media, with overt criminal enterprises, private ones, Weathersfield Police, and wire crime acts and methods. Falsified police reports more and more through time, pretending they had conversations with kids, and then as an adults. These are increasingly people at Hartford Hospital who have roles with a Ray Collo and a Joe DeMoro and their teachers at the campuses they went, involved in the intelligence community that has roles with overt criminal enterprises, private ones, with grim and putting fake things in databases, all sides of criminal and civil cases. Now, these are also people that play games with these, like with this O'Brien and clothing and the foreign, their rules with all these different foreign countries, but there's also a hyper foreign involved. So forgiveness is to get their rules with the judges and prosecutors forging names, switching names, and planting evidences in cases. They're using a whole bunch of people at Hartford Hospital have been planting evidences on all sides of my house with people tied to the ones I caught with the principal child abuser. There's still further of people I don't know the name of that drove by, that one of them that drove by on a bike with threats, credible threats, like repeating the names of one of the kids that they hid from involved with all the kids distinctly. They were hurting them because they had judges, family members, and judges plural, and prosecutors involved with wire crimes with the same house with the Wethersfield police with them, falsified police reports through time with them, civil and criminal cases, federal evidence is crimes rules. And the difference, they have rules plant with the spots next to the, and as the World Trade Center, the spots next to it, and one of them being the Ninth Circuit Court. They post date, these are people associated with post dating legal papers from inside that court. Eric Jensen and other people, I don't even know their names. They know my name. They said the name Colangelo is involved. And in other words, there was a Brian Silver too. I know what he looks like. I never had a conversation with him. Tried to make it look like other with a Leahy family, but whole fake conversations with me and about legal cases that they have roles with federal criminals in. Even if they're unmarked police forms, they have roles with federal crimes and cases, federal evidence is crimes, federal rules of evidence is crimes, mail crimes, wire crimes. These are people leading up to the World Trade Center attack in that context since, also with the family members and other ties to deans and the people and principals further involved. And and I'm saying that because they won't get it on paper. So they're making them criminally involved, and then pretending it's me personally against them. They've already put me in faked and changed communications. Like with the principal child abuser, they hid his confessions. They hid the untimely deaths that brought it up and rolls with that. Wethersfield police recorded, confessed, demonstrated, confirmed. There are people with with a whole bunch of other names involved, and that with them switching names, forging names, falsifying police reports, and they confessed that a police chief Cintron is involved with it. These are also, it was involved with a police chief years before that, involved with the same house, involved with the wire crimes with them, and with the houses associated with them, conversations with them, who also have roles with federal evidence as crimes, and home break-ins relative with the Wethersfield police roles with it, with state police, their roles with state police, their roles with prisons, their roles with the state corrections officers, and the further teachers with the schools involved with this, planting evidences with the news at the same time, lying about the outcomes in legal cases, fake conversations about them. In other words, one of the things the intelligence community does when they leak is by pretending they don't understand people. And then, in other words, short sentences. And then if you give them more, if you just keep saying things, they're going to dishonestly speak about serious things. And for example, where and how they have roles. Please, UConn too. Let's get them on paper, one name and sequence. It's all right. They want to make a complaint about something I wrote on Facebook. Before Facebook was forged, there were already roles with database crimes with the FBI. On Central Connecticut State University has people with the different departments and the community and the digital, with people with the name Demoro, with foreign and domestic medical families, and people with the name Mayano and Aiello, with also with mayors, other natures of politicians involved with drugs and medicines, crimes with kids, drugs and sexual, identity theft, fraud, slander, federal evidences, crimes, the roles planting evidences on all locations and next to them, and with Facebook. Sometimes, some ways it's Facebook too. Do what's right, you guys. Get on paper, one name and sequence. Two, please, you two. Please get them on name, one name and sequence. Connecticut branch of the government. Get them on paper, one name and sequence. In other words, They did a lot of bad things a lot of times. Everything that came before them, this preaching method, I taught them for the history of James Madison and of George Washington and of of the extortion of him and of the extortion method against him, which had been sustained against the Native Americans first. And at the time was being sustained, and it is still being sustained against him too, even though he's not here. We're supposed to defend. We're supposed to blame slavery on what had it entrenched and what had all forced roles are you discerned. Now one has learned. Like saying, I teach those things belong. So please, get Wethersfield police have wire crimes, acts, and methods. They're lying about their motivations. Why? Because they have roles before. 3 times they forced me into Harvard Hospital. Before that, I caught those. I didn't even know about it until it was there. And I kept my mouth shut because I saw them there. I saw the people there. Same ones involved with the wire crimes of Wethersfield police in the name Colo, in the spill Colo with the Bob Chase confessions. There are police forms with the name Mendez that have been attached to me to fake and changed communications with them since I was a kid, planting evidences. These are wire crime, max methods, falsified police reports, roles. Also with KKK, black themed and Latino themed. Is also relative as hyper evidential, where and how they get things wrong. You can't, in other words, clearer than day. The suburbs were designed tactically to nature for a torture method before our founders were born. So anyone who wants to debate, just even without knowing that the cities are tactically to nature, designed for torture and worse, and extortion and worse, by the breaching method. Again, that came through our home because it was still entrenched. A singular method, an effective method, a predicate acts with facts method. So we're not going to leave out this one part, which is a huge part, but it's only a little part. Where and how we have black people as white survive. In the predicate acts facts with facts method, pretends it's debatable. That's hyper evidential, and that we could use that to discern criminally foreign influence, fact, true nature, quality aspects of nature, and tactical delusions of the scientific experts of each of the sciences. Vaccine. That's just things. Species body longs to trade vaccine. So in other words, all sides in criminal and civil cases and the formal intelligence names, the difference between the intelligence and the interbranch names and the lawyers, all those differences. See, we have the same color eyes, different color eyes at the same time. This breaching method knew how difference works because it's exploiting what they made everyone forget before modern messengers were even born, religious messengers. There are proofs. In other words, the alphabet, the word alpha has to do with the alphabet and omega. See how omega is it has one, the neutral N, it stands for neutrality, or neutralize. Between M, the 13th letter is mother of the English alphabet. For the hyper intelligence method, a programming method I have for us and for myself, but in other words, I'm having to speak about this first here because we're going to be using the hyper evidential. And that uses self-valued roles. This locked all sides in criminal and civil cases and the interbranch names, switching sequences and switching names, self-valued roles of people who do that, sticking fake things in databases, roles with remote uses of all natures of investigators, methods to get away with it shown later, but say you're against crimes. That roles of predicate acts for facts. You guys are leaving this out. A whole bunch of people tied to a former Mayor Gold and his family increasingly. Confessions tied to them and demonstrations. And other mayors. I don't even know their names. They know my name. People tied to them. Other natures of politicians involved with this. See, had self-valued roles of where and how really states were left criminally foreign influence, tactically delusions wrought. Self-valued roles with that. Styles pretending like Marbury versus Madison, and the needs for it to be the appearance of justice were what they were on. Also, the prisons have roles with torture methods, while tactically delusions wrought, all kinds of scams with medicine, a part of those torture methods. A part of their roles also at the crime scenes, including using their own to hide that, but also with their families at all locations /at. Further, their roles with child offenders, murders, spots, body dumping spots, the witness protection program, whiting forensics, Sandy Hook campuses. There's a prison there too, involved with people from Pakistan and people involved with murders, body dumping spots, with all kinds of medical corruption. The prisons where their campuses too. These are campuses interstate tied to Central Connecticut State University. Ron Adams has recorded confessed one of the names associated with others on YouTube who posted, like a Joshua Julian, who was recorded posting on the Facebook page of the principal sex offender. He's involved with some KKK black theme, Confederate flag theme, Latino themes, intelligence involved with home break-ins. At the same time, timed collusion with overt criminal enterprises, private ones, recorded roles of racketeering, with rackets with different uses, because that's part of how they keep things blamed on other things other than themselves, like where and how people pretend they could speak for the law, and then they get away with it. Each of the sciences, though. See, forgiveness is to not leave out the breaching method. How we discern the breaching method is how we discern it relative to, for example, how in Russia and in America, the suburbs were designed by the torture method, extortion method, slavery method, North and South, sickly distinctly, but sickly non-distinctly too, already entrenched. It built them as a landscape theater that would be causing negative value nature progressions in natures, but without anyone realizing, making people more and more reliant upon self-value with the system's tactical ulterior from nature's. Nature uses how it is five distinct identities of positive that are connected. Also, three ways grouped and as the extent of any subject that we have, that we could see, we could deal with. So, Ron Adams, were you the one who brought up Judge Napolitano? You said you were at a wedding with him. Because WFSB attached me to fake conversations with themselves. And they have roles with journalists on Fox Connecticut News and WTNH. There are proofs that there might be Secret Service involved because of the confessions and demonstrations at Central Connecticut State University and their roles with that through time. In other words, one of the things that everyone will confess and demonstrate is that they had been influenced, criminally foreign influenced, sometimes by others, sometimes it was their own self. The only times I know them, not all exceptions too, though, they exploit exceptions. That's how you can see that we can learn a lot. Like, for example, there's a Chet Casper and a Mike Daly who pretended to know me made hand gestures, pretend we were talking verbally. One of two times I saw them there next to the state capitol, and I never spoke with them. In other words, they were filming. They have roles with falsified police report with judges and prosecutors planting evidences with their families, and ones near me that used to live near me with the intelligence community, like named O'Brien, and with this former Mayor Gold increasingly tied to child offenders, overt criminal enterprises, and people that know my name, and people making threats to me that I don't know, with the police forging and switching names. They also pretended I said people were following me as the people that had pretended. The whole fake conversations, but in it, they categorically went to do that. And I noticed I'm learning a lot because you guys are not responding too. In other words, I have a phone. I'm asking you. I asked you guys, and you guys put me in fake. They put fake transcripts to hide what is actually recorded. These families have rules with a whole bunch of different countries. They're ducking between that with the ones with the judges and prosecutors, Harper Court's family members, and New Britain Superior Court's families, and people out of the state corrections and judicial branch offices before the World Trade Center attack. They've been planting evidences, as they do since founding, with overt criminal enterprises, private ones, foreign and domestic military, leading up to the World Trade Center attack in that context and since. So they're experts on things like wars, but they're not really experts because they want to just, everyone's just defending their knowledge of good and evil dishonestly where it counts. In other words, any book can be crushed with the reality of how James Madison's playing and how George Washington asked us to value how he was extorted because it shows the breaching method. It shows the method to it. It shows what was entrenched. It showed where and how they had no means to get it unentrenched without the phenomenon of telling us to get the Constitution unabridged. That just makes it harder and harder to them to the breaching method to stay. All this power / might. See, but it knew it would be able to do it. Like we won't be able to. A through Z, we will all start agreeing about things and in ways that if things messed up, we could adjust. In other words. And they want to have a debate about who works. You have the companies, UPS, please. So you guys don't have to be criminally responsible. Respond for the people. In other words, former director of the FBI, Robert Luskin, and courts and people with the military, foreign and domestic, before the World Trade Center attack. In that context and sense, they demonstrated to me the UPS rolls with themselves. And with on-off campuses, federal evidence is crimes, federal rules of evidence is crimes. They even say and communicate things, and then they say and communicate other because there are proofs that that's where they were recording themselves. And these are the people putting fake transcripts, like a Brendan Leahy, and people at Harvard Hospital with the name Violet and Klovinskis, with a whole bunch of black KKK themed people. They're professors and teachers. I never had a class with a Klovinskis and Mark Violet. I don't think they went to my grammar school, but people from my grammar school that weren't in other classes, but we're in the same class and know how they have class of citizen. You're in this city. This is a game that was there because this is using the syntax. We guys are employed to blame other things, others ourselves. The real cause of negative value nature progression, acts of nature is employed by the breaching method. And then further, before our families were born already, before messengers of religions were born, already value nature systems, tactical ulterior, from only one that is hypercommon. Only one that properly teaches about positive and negative. So there's a difference between positive, that is a criminal insidiousness nature of a positive, and something that is not. There's a difference between saying things are debatable or saying things should be solved at courts. When the courts are still with collusions, keeping the things going before the courts, because the courts already locked themselves roles with predicate acts with facts. Collusions at crime scenes from their own places, just entertaining how they think. And, and putting fake things in databases and the motivations they pretend, because that's also screening their actual motivations, their remote uses of themselves, of their syntax, regarding the significance of understanding this and it's having been and being replaced formally through our schools. See, that makes the identities reliant as fake integrity of lost voices, self-value roles, pretend with means to pretend other that the breaching method put there. So this is also a method that's recorded between the campuses and on-off campuses connected, because it forced tricks. It's like a magic tricks they use to force trick, hurt, and persuade people. They just attach you to fake change. Everyone to fake change words anyway, but to make you say things that makes it sound like you're corroborating what they say. In other words, this is also relative to the rules with election locations where they have the differences of parties employed to screen what's going on and having gone on there. Like Wethersfield town offices, they have roles with this through administrations, which is also hyper evidentially recorded. And they have roles with all kinds of rackets with the World Trade Center and with all natures of investigators. Increasingly, with overt criminal enterprises, private ones, and conscious uses of the criminal insidiousness as countries A through Z, like archetypal criminal enterprises A through Z, all group differences and voicings and defenses of it. So in other words, I'll show you how to put pantheism / hyper-pantheism, military. Who will get this set up as we'll sell it and then make a virtual owner of that money that gets sold. It generates a weapon that makes peace. So it's a military device that makes peace instead of war and killing. Because we are in a semi-ancient trap. So even if we have enemies, that's maintained by the breaching method. In other words, some of the people involved with the intelligence community involved here and the teachers and used to these games with people not even in the same classes. They try to make fake exceptions. All that's recorded. Central Connecticut State University has roles with people with UConn involved with foreign and domestic medical offenders, people with Pakistan, people with the different countries, people with their religious spots involved with this too, to duck behind pretend people that lie about their own motivations than others. That's why they're putting with their kids into conversations with the news media, planting evidences with themselves, using other titles in those locations, criminally foreign impulse, tactically delusions raw, with cops switching and forging names, roles with wire crimes and sick things the years before. So New Britain Superior Court has roles with a whole bunch of names that associated at Central Connecticut State University, involved with the intelligence community from Wethersfield, who have been planting evidences through the years. And when I mention things on Facebook, they can't be honest about it now. They are involved with behavior racketeering, identity theft, fraud, slander, pretending legitimate. It's people from the intelligence community recorded, confessed, demonstrated, confirmed. There's sources too. There's a Mark Carone and Kevin Carone. They've been making up things with the intelligence community, fake motivations, fake ties, fake nature of the ties to me. And with the people on off Trinity College, CCSU, and UConn, and Quinnipiac University, putting fake all kinds of natures of organized crime. Then they're going to go polling people. They have possession over the reactions and or the non-reactions of the president. These are sick people on off the state of Connecticut corrections offices and judicial branch offices involved with the names of wire crimes, and with this Phil Cololo involved with the names on my street with the name Cololo too. But Phil Cololo is one of the ones from other areas. I don't know where he lives, but he's involved with a bike on my street. Further involved with whiting forensics, with people with poison threats, things like that. Mayors involved, ducking behind their titles. Police chiefs retired, involved with the same house of wire crimes, forging, switching names. They don't want paper one name in sequence because they have the Facebook pages of the Britain Superior Court, Fox News, WFSB, the campuses too. They're lying about their motivations when they hear things posted because there are murders and untimely deaths, and they've been hiding about that. They're the ones who need things to hide now. because this is recorded other than they pretended. Even if they made up some of those stories too. For example, witch trials, no matter what they were about, one of the things we know what they were about, even if they were completely made up, they were about slavery, that slavery method. They're about that torture and extortion method of George Washington, let alone George Washington and the founders he agreed to help behind the face of James Madison, as we were taught to learn this. As I read in my book and told my professor, I think that's why they were going through like that with people that helped them. That was at Central Connecticut State. Bad things were happening though. In other words, these campuses have had through time roles intercities planted with predicate acts with facts methods. It's important to get, so that's why interbranch forging and switching names and cover-ups of that. These are styles that bring people before courts to stack fake things to hide what was the roles with it before. In other words, and then they do things like put charges and they don't cite legal precedents. Because if they don't give paper and they make exceptions fake and they put arrays of fake different things, different officers on different fake police reports narratives for the same arrest, and then God knows what is in the database, and no one's ever left with it. All they had was a charge and no writing. And New Britain Superior Court has rules with the FBI with that, and Wethersfield Police that are rules with names like with the name Colo, De Simone, and O'Brien with Rocky Hill Police, Newington Police, other names. I don't even know them all. In other words, nothing personal against the police, too. They were court capacity sought me out to demonstrate they lie about that, too. Has something to do with their spots next to the state capitol. People involved with the state capitol involved with them. And their rolls on off the conjunctions to Two Rod Highway and Hangdog Lane, like Route 3. And their rolls with conjunctions and wire crime rolls with names next to the state judicial branch offices and next to the state prison corrections officers, and the people at the prisons involved also with kids' prisons as people involved with child offenders. So there are probate court judges. They just stick right inside the elderly homes, right inside the prisons, right inside the roles with it. They're not letting them out there. These are the same ones involved with the child offenders at the schools and medical offenders of them. These are torture methods against prisoners and things like that. They're using it against that. And these prisoners, they're being framed and they have done also way less than the people that work there, involved with predicate acts with facts. Pakistan had roles with Afghanistan people, overt criminal enterprises involved with whiting forensics, increasingly involved with child offenders and body dumping spots, and mayors planting evidences roles with the names next to it too. No. Get them on paper, Wethersfield Police on paper for their. I asked them, so I was a kid, I haven't seen one thing of writing. They're putting fake things in databases. Now I want the fake news fixed, and I want the response from the campuses. And you apologize to parents that you scared by lying to them, using right to lie. They have me in fake conversations about my family members. With these doctors involved with the campuses, so you should fear God with the courts involved with it too. Get them on one name in sequence and get them out of the courts, or get them here. I'll show you how to think. Hey.